Thank you. Representative Capps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and for holding this hearing. Thank you to our witnesses for your testimonies. This is, I always start here. In 1969, an offshore oil platform failed off the coast of Santa Barbara, my district, resulting in one of the largest spills in the history of the country. And since then, constituents in my district have been acutely aware of the dangers of offshore oil and gas production. And I grant you that significant strides have been made since this time to improve the overall safety of the industry, but incidents in the pipeline industry have continued to remind us that this is an inherently risky and dangerous business that can cause great harm to our communities. Again, our area was reminded of this fact just last May when the Plains oil pipeline ruptured, spilling crude oil all along the Gaviota coast, very near Santa Barbara. Very costly event. This spill once again highlighted the need for robust safety standards and the continued vigilance to prevent these types of events. So I have actually I have three questions for Brian Salerno and Abigail Ross Hopper, and because in addition to concerns regarding offshore oil drilling, many people in my district have deep concerns over both the occurrence of and potential negative environmental impacts of offshore fracking and other well stimulation activities. As perhaps you're aware, this concern recently led to a settlement between the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, as well as the nonprofit in my district, the Environmental Defense Center, headquartered in my district. As part of this settlement, BSEE and BOEM were required to evaluate the potential environmental risks of these well-stimulated methods. However, in addition to the warranted fears over potential environmental impacts of offshore fracking, there is significant concern over the lack of transparency about when and how these methods have been used. So to both of you, now that there's been more attention focused on these well stimulation activities offshore, does either BOEM or BSEE have a plan in place to ensure that there will be more public disclosure as to where and when these activities are being used? I don't care who goes first. And briefly, if you don't mind, because I have a couple more questions, too.
Thank you, Representative Capps. Well, to get to the issue of the environmental concerns, we did have the settlement, as you indicated. It does require that we conduct a programmatic environmental assessment. That work actually began roughly about a year ago. So it was recently made public, and so we're now in that stage of looking for public comment as to the criteria that would be used in the approval of permits that involve fracking. And again, fracking in this case is a very limited in scope and scale compared to onshore fracking. It's more of a well conditioning.
Perhaps activity. Before Director Hopper, I turn to you, maybe I'll give you the next question because you could have said the same thing, each of you probably. Will BSEE and BOEM require that companies using fracking and other well stimulation in federal waters disclose what chemicals are being used in the process? I know we get into proprietary issues perhaps, but this could be something similar to the Bureau of Land Management's rule to use frac focus for disclosure.
I would like to maybe give you a more in-depth answer on the record. That issue has come up, as you know, and the way it's been approved up to now is to rely on the EPA's determination as to which chemicals can be released and in what limited quantities. Right. So that's the reliance that we place on that EPA determination. But excellent. I understand where the question's coming from.
Exactly. And so finally, Director Hopper, maybe this one to you. Could you describe at least one or two offshore renewable projects in general, and specifically those that might be occurring in California?
Certainly, I would be happy to, Congresswoman. There is interest in all forms of offshore renewables off the coast of California. We recently received an unsolicited lease request for an offshore wind farm off the coast of California, which we are happy to receive and are processing now. And so you will see more information about that in the very near future. And we are also in conversation with folks that are interested in offshore wave technology. And
About that one.
Yes, yes. I was with some of your staff, I believe, in California, talking about that. And so we are looking at sort of the appropriate places to do that as well, and we are very supportive of both sorts of technology.
I know I've gone over my time, but I'm hoping that there will be ways to incentivize these projects because they are win-win, win-win and wind, some of them, in terms of how they're received in the local community.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.